Now that I've created the container for the student workshop, I would need to click on the name of the workshop to go in and set it up. Now, there's a whole series of things that have to be done here, and you can see that the only one I've completed to date was to set up that description for the workshop. And you can use this as a guide to completing your work. So if I click on this link right here, you can see that I haven't provided instructions for the submission. So I'm going to click on that. It'll bring me back into my main page, submission settings, and I'll give the instructions right here. Okay, so I quickly created instructions for submission. I'm going to allow one upload. I don't think this should need to be 50 megabytes, but I can leave it there. And I'm going to decide not to allow late submissions, so to force people to get this in on time. I'm going to save it. It will jump me back to my course where I can re-enter this workshop on student assessment and see that this has now been done. There's an assessment form that I need to edit, and this is basically your rubric. As you can see, there's aspects 1, 2, and 3. These are equivalent to your strands, and you can give a description in here as to what people need to do in their project. So I've gone ahead and completed 2 versions of descriptions. One is just a paragraph describing the types of things that should be included in this strand. You can see that the possible grade is set to 10 for this strand, up to 10 points, but I can change that to anything I want. I can also weight this strand to be more or less than any of the other strands. In the second version, I actually threw a table in there. So you would do that using the this table icon, and from there you can say how many columns and rows you'd like, and just built that out as a more traditional rubric strand. Now, I didn't put in a third aspect, but had I needed more than 3, I could have added blanks for 2 more aspects here. So when I do that, after a minute or 2, I'm going to get aspects 4 and 5, and then there they come. A little sloppy. And if I needed more, I could continue to add them until I got all of basically the strands that I need. Now at this point I can save and preview, or I can save and close. So let me save and preview. And this is essentially what the user will see. Here's that paragraph, that descriptive paragraph, their ability to choose the number of points someone earned on this particular strand, and any comments they want to add. When I come down to the second, you can see this one's laid out more in that grid, but again, they can choose the number of points in their comments. There's also a box down at the bottom for overall feedback, just general opinions and general constructive criticism that students can give. Let me jump back for a second to the course and back into that workshop, and you can see that I'm progressing. Okay, now in order to prepare my example submissions, I'm going to have to add some down here. This is a great way for students to get practice in using the rubric. So of course it needs a title, and then the submission content. And you can attach files down here. So in this case I might attach the video if that's something that the students were assessing. And like all of Moodle, I can simply write text in here, and I could link out. If this video was posted on YouTube or someplace else, I'd simply type some explanatory text, add the link as we did before, and then that's how they could get the content to assess. So let me just put a placeholder in there for now. And save the changes. You have to assess the example submission to provide a reference assessment. Click Continue. So I am going to do an assessment of this piece so students can see what an appropriate assessment looks like. Now I read these instructions, they have the sample, I've looked at it, this has got an 8 out of 10, and here are my reasons why it received that score. I look at my rubric in the second aspect, I say that was a 9 out of 10, and I give my reasons as to what is good, both good about the project and what could have used improvement. Overall feedback, I want to give a nice example here of positive constructive criticism. Maybe we have a rule where there must be 3 positives and a suggestion, something along those lines. So I'm going to save and close that. And you can see that the setup phase is now complete. As the projects work through, provide instructions for assessment. So this is the submission phase, the assessment phase, the grading phase, and you go through each of these things and do the setup for the project. Okay, so let's look at providing instructions for assessment. And there it is in there, so I'm going to give them instructions, please view it carefully, reference the rubric, remember to be kind, etc. And I can save and return. Re-enter the workshop. This is a bit of setup, so it's a project that I probably wouldn't do every day, but I think there is a lot of value to it. Now this is important. Allocate submissions. So if we're going to have people assess other people, how are they going to get access to that work? And you could manually, once they're submitted, you could manually pair them up, but this works very well, the random allocation. And all you really have to do is tell it that each person is going to wind up doing a certain number of reviews. So let's just make each person do 3 reviews. Good practice. So if they submit one thing, they review 3 others. If I'd already allocated, I could click this button to reallocate everything. To get it started, participants can assess without having submitted anything. I can leave that unchecked if I want them to have to complete their project before they can participate. Obviously, if I want them to participate anyway, I'm going to check that. And this says self-assessments have been disabled. But if I had allowed self-assessments, then I could set that here. So I'm going to save those changes. And this is probably something that I'm going to have to do after all the submissions are in. So right now there are no submissions, but once they came in, and that's another reason for that grace period between the submission deadline and the beginning of the peer assessment. Very common in this type of environment. I've returned to the page and now into the workshop. And you can see this is not green, but I'm not going to be able to set this until people have submitted their data. Again, later on I can calculate the submission grades, I can calculate the assessment grades, and I can provide a conclusion for the activity. But these are things that are going to need data already in the system in order to be able to complete. So basically that's how you set up a workshop. Again, it's a bit complicated, it's a bit of work, but for major activity, for culminating activity, something where students are using rubrics and doing projects, I think it's worthwhile.